Donald Trump doesn't much care for the mainstream media. But there is one popular television show he almost never misses: Fox and Friends. It is the morning show of choice for the president, according to Boston.com. I like that group of 3 people, he said of its presenters. They had a man who was saying, "Trump is the greatest president ever, and there will never be one like him." The 3-hour Fox program has gained a ratings bump from Trump's public approbation, says the Los Angeles Times, reporting that it now has 1.7 million viewers every morning. It also gained all-important advertising revenue. Ad revenue for Fox and Friends rose 33% to $12.5 million during the fourth quarter of 2016, compared with the same period a year earlier. Trump cheered. Having complained in characteristic fashion about the fake news media, he congratulated Fox and Friends on its unbelievable ratings hike. What, apart from an ego boost, could Trump be getting out of this flagship program that he doesn't get from the outlets he refers to as fake news? Well, the short answer is that Fox and Friends is one of the few television programs to consistently whitewash whatever the White House and its key figures are up to. The longer answer has to do with Trump's long backstory with the program and what Politico called the strange psychological power of Fox and Friends. It is the power of a special relationship and positive thinking even in the face of bright orange disaster. Launched in 1998, Fox and Friends began as Fox Express, the hard-right news channel's morning talk show, starting out as a 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. show, and then adding an hour extra from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. to its broadcast a decade later. Fox and Friends was the softer, lighter, and more family-friendly end of an otherwise tense, alarmist, and bullying news channel. Except for one thing. For all the Disney Channel smiles on the show, the entertainment on Fox derives from a constant antagonism and explosions of anger between the various hosts. On Fox and Friends, this aggression tends to be smoothed over with gentle good humour. But the dark side of this entertainment, the backstabbing nastiness behind the facade, was exposed when the show lost its host Gretchen Carlson. Problems first appeared publicly when Carlson walked off the show in June 2012 after her co-host Brian Kilmeade said,
"Women are everywhere. We're letting them play golf and tennis now. It's out of control."
You know what? You know what?
She's out.
It soon transpired that Carlson had complained to Roger Ailes about harassment and got nowhere. So she made a formal complaint against Ailes. According to the complaint quoted at the Washington Post, her co-host Steve Doocy, who is still a prominent on the show, created a hostile work environment by regularly treating her in a sexist and condescending way, including by putting his hand on her and pulling down her arm to shush her during a live telecast. When she told Fox boss Roger Ailes about it, he called her a man-hater and told her to get along with the boys. In the end, Ailes was booted out by the company, desperate to avoid a major PR scandal, and made a $20 million settlement with Carlson. Perhaps it's not so surprising that the pussy grabber-in-chief should be attracted to a show like this, and he's had a very special relationship with the show for years, going back to his time as host of The Apprentice. Indeed, the show seems to have played a role in positioning him as a potential president. In 2008, during the US presidential primaries that year, they asked him,
"Would you ever run for president?" Just out of curiosity.
Well, a lot of people wanted me to. A lot of people want me to. They have all sorts of websites and everything else, but I love what I'm doing.
As CNN explains in a video segment, Fox and Friends could be described,
think of it as an iron fist wrapped in cotton candy.
It is, behind a family-friendly smile, a ferocious propagandist for Trump. Fox and Friends came into its own for Trump as a major backer of his in the 2016 presidential election. This they did by, for example, inviting Melania Trump onto the show to open up about how
My husband is kind, he's a gentleman, he cares about people.
they got his son Eric onto the show to talk about
What was it like casting that ballot? I would love to have a chance to talk to Eric about this.
Oh, well, we can make that happen, Brian, because Eric Trump is here now with his Election Day message to everyone.
They celebrated his win by having a staged conversation with Florida diners who just happened to be Trump enthusiasts. And now that Trump's in office, the program seems determined to help Trump fulfill his promise that there would be non-stop winning. The Washington Post describes a typical morning on the program, in which they celebrate National Pancake Day before celebrating a win in the war on terror. Fox and Friends and the presidency have entered into a kind of weird symbiosis. Trump's Twitter feed in the mornings can be predicted to a very large extent based on what has been on the agenda of the program. Fox and Friends runs a story about a flag being burned. Trump tweets, "Nobody should be allowed to burn the flag. If they do, there should be consequences, perhaps loss of citizenship or a year in jail." The pattern is relentless. Adam Gabbett reports in The Guardian, on 7th of March, the president tweeted 5 times in direct response to topics discussed during the 3-hour Fox and Friends on the Fox News channel. It wasn't a one-off. On 29th of November, Trump suggested that anyone caught burning the American flag should lose their citizenship or spend a year in jail. He sent his tweet at 6:55 a.m. ET, 30 minutes after Fox and Friends ran a piece about a protest in which someone burned the American flag. Indeed, Trump goes so far as to directly reply to Fox and Friends segments in real time, as when Laura Ingraham criticized the Republican Party's healthcare reforms for leaving out the Trumpiest parts, and Trump replied on Twitter, tagging Fox and Friends in. It goes without saying that most of the show's content is not only ideologically aligned to the Trump hard right, but that a great deal of it is dedicated to supporting Trump against the attacks coming from the liberal center. And it isn't just that Trump's Twitter feed is driven by Fox and Friends. The Fox and Friends program often starts from whatever Trump has been saying on Twitter. For example, amid the nationwide controversy about Trump's aide and son-in-law Jared Kushner's contacts with Russia, the talk show opened with a Trump tweet. Russian officials must be laughing at the US and how a lame excuse for why the Dems lost the election has taken over fake news. Before politely asking Kellyanne Conway, Trump's spokesperson,
the president clearly defending his son-in-law. Set the record straight for us. What are the facts?
Granted that this story about Russia's connections is vastly overblown and thus far has generated little substance, it seems that Fox doesn't like any questioning of Trump. On 12th of May, Fox and Friends was complaining about an NBC interviewer, Lester Holt, being a little too interrogative of the president.
After everything the president said, Lester Holt questioned him. "Oh, you said that? Well, what about this?" Which it seemed like an interrogation.
Trump has repaid all this handsomely by giving the show's hosts special access to him, his wife, his children, and his workplace. Early in his reign, he invited Fox and Friends to visit the Oval Office, and they were just blown away.
When we went to the White House on Monday and we sat down with the president, which was so awesome, we took a little tour.
This is beautiful.
It's a great and beautiful office.
When there's an exclusive interview to be had, there's a good chance it will be with the show's magisterial inquisitor, Ainsley Earhart, who stands and nods politely at everything the president says. In one major interview, conducted in studio, the hosts introduced Trump by thanking him for all his publicity for the show.
By the way, thank you very much for the shout-out you gave at your press conference about 10 days ago.
That's true, I did. You have treated me very fairly, and I appreciate it.
When it comes to anything Trump does by way of policy, the show slips into heavy breathing mode. This was its reaction to an executive order dealing with religious liberty.
This is a major victory for Americans of faith.
And if Congress gave many problems, for example over building that wall, they had helpful hints like get corporate sponsorship. The show is also happy to help Trump put out fake news. Andrew Napolitano used the program to float his claims in the guise of a news report that the United Kingdom helped Obama spy on Trump. But, as Associated Press reports, the UK dismissed the reports as nonsense, and Fox said it could provide no evidence to back it up. So Napolitano has been taken off the air indefinitely. Obviously, this goes beyond partisan news reporting. It is grotesque, bootlicking propaganda. Earhart justifies this fanzine format on the basis that, as the Los Angeles Times reports, if you watch the mainstream media, more often than not nowadays, after the election, there's a lot of negativity and not telling both sides of the story, especially when it comes to Donald Trump. And yet, if it was just propaganda, it wouldn't be as successful as it is. The show has proved to be one of the most popular morning talk shows, addictive viewing for 1.7 million people each morning. What is the secret of this sinister smile, this relentless upbeat cheeriness? Politico argues that it's very simple. It's the best sales pitch in the world. The fast pace, the cheerfulness, and the breezy confidence are a combination tailor-made for maximum persuasion. If I tuned into that show, I would feel simultaneously happy, reassured and smart, says Donegal Young, a professor at the University of Delaware. That is to say, it is not just propaganda, it is the concentrated essence of propaganda, the confidence trick in broadcast format. And if pacey, cheerful confidence sounds a great deal like the Trump effect, it is. It is the other side of the constant paranoia, the permanent sense of siege, the world-weary dog-eat-dog cynicism of Trump ideology. Fox and Friends is the only consistently friendly, sunny corner of the media for Trump. It is the only slot where Trump ideology can thrive, even on the Fox News channel. It does represent the world as a terrifying place filled with menacing foreigners and subversives, but it also represents Trump as a terrifically powerful and paternal protector come from the 50s to save us. If fascism ever did take power in America, Fox and Friends would have the first soft-lit live interview from the Oval Office.